subletting for a month here and there when I didn't have my own place back in the day. Then I was in a city for a couple of months, but this actually the previous apartment that I got in 2008 was probably the first proper apartment I ever had, like, because I bought it, you know. Before that, I only been subletting and renting short-term student flats and secondhand, you know. So, but this is nice because it's a couple of stops from the city. It's really close, but it's still quite quiet. And there's a nature reservation, like a woods nearby here, so good for taking runs and dog walks and stuff. So, and I grew up in a small village, so it's good for me to have a bit of both.
So you were never really a city person then, would you say?
Well, yes and no. Like when I grew up, I'm born in 76. So growing up in the 80s where I grew up, which was a very rural area, like a small village outside of a small town. And it's an area called Dalarna. That's sort of the region. And it's very beautiful, but wasn't a lot going on, especially then, I guess, with no internet, 2 channels on the TV, and all my friends were into sports and video games and I don't know, video violence, Rambo, and you know, stuff like that.
It was the 80s, yeah.
Yeah, it was the 80s, yeah. And I was only into music and maybe comics and books and you know, films, other films. So, and mainly music. I started playing violin when I was 7, and then I always like looked towards the guitar. My mother had an old guitar that she couldn't tune because she had to learn a couple of chords. She was a teacher, and in the 70s, when she had classes, she had to know like 3 chords to sing with the class or something. So she had that guitar standing there, and I started on violin because that area is big on folk music, like Swedish fiddle folk music. So it's kind of a big violin scene. But then I was always looking at that guitar and I was always into pop music. So at 10, 11, I learned a couple of chords and straight away started, you know, writing songs basically. So I never really felt I fitted in. Like I always enjoyed nature. I enjoyed sort of the quiet life. And I kind of say to this day that boredom is good for creativity. Which I found during the pandemic when my new project started. It's like sitting alone at home with maybe a guitar and listening to music and just looking inwards. It's for me, it's always been like the start of projects and start of songs. And I think that started where I grew up, you know. So in that sense, I'm kind of a village or like a country boy, but I was always, you know, longing for the city, and I moved to Stockholm this year 30 years ago. It's crazy. It's such 95, like the autumn of 95. So I've been here for a long time, but it's funny what you say, because I still don't really see myself as a Stockholmer. You know, it's like and it's such a lot of people living here that have a similar background, that come from small villages, and so it never goes out of me. And now, last couple of years, like 2 years ago, we got like a summer cottage out on an island in the archipelago. There's a big archipelago outside of Stockholm, which is one of the best selling points for Stockholm. Is so much water and islands and greenery, you know. So we got that 2 years ago, and this summer I've been going back and forth to the island, and living on that island is kind of like living in my village when I grew up, because you say hello to everyone, and it's like a small community, and you start talking to neighbors and people that you would never talk to in the city, because maybe you have different interests and different age groups, and I enjoy that. It's it's a different way of socializing that I find it rewarding. You know,
I'm experiencing that myself because I'm from California. I'm from outside of San Francisco originally. I mean, it was the suburbs, but you know, still Silicon Valley, a lot of people. Yeah. And then I spent most of my adult life in Queens. I moved up here town of, I think my town is maybe like 5,000 people. And I'm finding out the good and the bad of small towns, the bad being, not that I'm doing this, but the bad being, you don't want to do anything embarrassing in a small town because you're going to see the
Everyone
same people
knows.
over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right in that. I think it is really interesting the people that you sort of end up connecting with, people that you might not naturally gravitate towards otherwise.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing. It's kind of and it makes you realize that you still have stuff in common. You have stuff in common with almost everybody. We're all humans, and you can find common ground in small subjects, and I don't know. And I quite enjoy actually spending time with people that are maybe like 10 or 15 years older than me, like almost like pensioners. I just find there's something calming about that, and I'm in the middle of life, but they have even more life experience and maybe have like settled down in it even more, and makes me relax as well, And I find that in work too. I just did a record with Robert Forster from the Go-Betweens that I produced, and it's a similar thing. He just turned 68, and I enjoy his company as well. So it's kind of, I feel relaxed with those. Yeah.
You said something really interesting, it's specifically about this project that we're, ostensibly here to talk about. You were discussing this idea of having an identity as a musician, and the two people that you brought up were James Bjorkston and Robert Forster. And I'm wondering what that means. What does it mean to have an identity as a musician, especially somebody who has released several solo albums over the years?
Well, I guess hanging out with those guys reminded me of stuff in myself, basically, because when I grew up, going back to that village in the 80s and later in the 90s, and even when we started the band, like in 2000 or whenever that was, I had quite a clear identity of where I came from and what I wanted to do in music. And with some success, and also the band is sort of what was the word? Like how the band worked, and sort of the band democracy and
the
dynamics.
Everything.
The dynamics, that's the word. Yeah. Something changed when we had our big breakthrough with Writer's Block and Young Folks 20 years ago soon. And we kind of, one thing was that we were all were writing, we were all like singing, we were all producing, and maybe in the beginning I kind of steered the ship a little bit more. So that was one thing.
You got your name first, which that says something, right?
Yeah. But Writer's Block was the first record where everyone was contributing, so I think that was a big reason why it was successful, because you had like a different thing. But you start we were still doing stuff just naturally then, but then you start like thinking. We started having meetings about concepts and dogmas, which I think it's a good thing, because if you're, I still work like that as a solo artist or in my own projects as well. Like you set up a couple of rules to be able to finish a project. Otherwise, you would never
constraints.
Yeah, exactly. But doing it in a band, you have to like decide together, and then maybe you were explaining your lyrics to the other guys, and you start thinking about, okay, I don't think Bjorn or John will like this chord progression or this middle eight or whatever. I think I'll change it before I show it. Small stuff like that on one hand. Then on the other hand, expectations and just having an audience at all, because we used to have nothing. Like the first two records, it was we played small student venues in Sweden. We went to London once, Norway once, but it was very small. And then suddenly like national TV and US TV and all that, and big tours. So we kind of went different directions there as well. We went, on one hand, mega experimental on some records and some songs, and then on the other hand, we tried at points to write hits, deliberately. And I guess what I meant about that's just one aspect of it. The other aspect is that I've been doing work for other people. I've been co-writing and trying to do on a very small scale, like the Max Martin thing. I've been trying to write pop songs with people, and it's nothing wrong about that. But I've found that it's not my natural, like basically not having control, not being able to finish a project and tying an album together, and just writing songs, and you have no idea if they're ever going to be released, And
it's also, I don't know if this is your experience, but it seems like most of the songs that come out from pop musicians, there's like 10 names attached to them.
Yeah, it happens. I don't exactly know how that happens. I think there's a lot of like post-production, and maybe people put their name on beats and stuff. But I've been writing with like 3 or 4 people, maybe not like 10, but and then you have to have different roles. It's usually a producer, an artist. Maybe I'm sort of like a guy with a guitar and a melody or lyric. I don't know.
That's still a lot of chefs in the kitchen, though.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I enjoy it sometimes, but I think for a while I did a little bit too much, and I also felt like most of these songs never came out. 90% never come out, but you still do a lot of work with it, and maybe I felt I was spreading myself a bit thin. So a lot of thinking, a lot of like doing work for other people, and then during the pandemic, went back to this sort of primal scene of sitting in the village with my guitar, and that's what I meant about, like, I've been working with Robert, I've been working with James on their records, and for them, they never seen any of these scenarios. I mean, obviously they've been collaborating with other people, but it was always like their own project, their own bands, and the identity of a singer-songwriter who wrote songs that they were quirky and like, reflected their personalities. And especially in co-writing, but even in a band like Peter, Bjorn and John, you kind of take away a bit of your personality through compromises. And it's nothing wrong with that. I mean, a lot of beautiful music can be made that way, but I kind of reminded myself of who I wanted to be as a kid, and it was never, Max Martin or I don't know what else. It's just the most common name you come up with, but and maybe I wasn't even into like even thinking about an indie band even or an indie rock scene. I was thinking like Elvis Costello, Bob Dylan, Paul Simon, John Lennon, I don't know, like a classic singer-songwriter. That was kind of my...
Small artists like that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's another thing I think is important that you should... I've been trying to think about that because it's a fault I sometimes make, or I don't know, people make. You kind of look at people around you. You look at like, okay, who's popular in Sweden now? What is he doing? What is she doing? And you're kind of looking around you and trying to put your finger in the wind and so, okay, maybe I should do something like that. That seems to be the vogue. Is that the word? Vague? Vogue? That's like the
No, it's definitely not woke. Woke means something very different over here.
Yeah, no, I mean vogue, like
vogue. Vogue, yeah.
Like
in vogue,
what is in vogue at the moment, or whatever.
It's a zeitgeist,
yeah, and also just looking at people around you, people you meet in the at the festivals or in the pub, and sometimes peers, like friends or whatever, but people that maybe have success at the moment. But I think, again, it's important to look at, okay, what do I listen to? What do I like? What
sure.
inspired me to start making music? And might, as you said, small artists like that, but it's like, it sounds big-headed, but at the same time, you should compare yourself to the things you love, like rather, yeah.
My first thought when you're talking about being in this very rural area with 2 channels is, what kind of music is getting through to you. And you mentioned a lot of it is the folk music, is the regional music. And it immediately occurred to me that, later in life, you start having this connection with, the Fairport conventions, the Nick Drake, Richard and Linda Thompson. And is that, in a way, does that directly connect back to that music that you really grew up with?
In a way, I think it does, because not that I ever heard anything of that stuff when I was a kid. I didn't know anything about it. But there is something. I just read Richard Thompson's book, Bees Wing, and he talks about how he started, he wanted to not get lumped in with the blues rock people of the late 60s, and was a big, like, British blues boom. Yeah, Peter Green and all those, Jeff Beck. And he wanted to deliberately go another direction, so he was, like, trying to avoid blues influences. And he had a bit of country in there, and he grew up on rockabilly, so he had that stuff. But then looking at Scottish pipe music and the scales of that, and I can feel. I also took. Now I'm going all over the place, but at one point in high school, I took sitar lessons as well, because I was a Beatles freak. So I kind of took.
So you were a George guy.
No, I would say I'm Paul and John, but I mean, I love them all. But anyway, it was just like I went to music high school, and I kind of sucked at it because I didn't fit in there either, because I couldn't read music, and the guitar teacher was just teaching jazz, and I wasn't interested in learning jazz, and singing was classical, and I wasn't interested in that either. But for the second year, that's where I met Bjorn, so that was a good thing. He was there as well. But for the second year, you could, like, put in a third instrument to take classes in. And just as a joke, I put in sitar, because there would never be a teacher. That was a smaller town. It's like a bit north of Stockholm, but not as north as I'm from. It's like, 2 hours from here or something. Västerås. And I thought I was never going to get sitar. No way. But there was a sitar, like, actual super skilled sitar master living in Västerås, because he got married to a violinist from the local symphony orchestra.
He was, like, from India?
Yeah, but he lived there. So I thought, okay, so I'm taking sitar. So I took sitar lessons for 2 years, and now I wouldn't be able to tune a sitar. There's so many strings. But I think something about it, I could see, like, a common thread through, like, the violin, like the melancholy of the violin melodies, and sort of those scales, and the way you sort of, what's the word? How you sort of linger on the notes, or, like, do little, I can't explain it, but, gliding and stuff. And I can see similarity. Yeah. And just doing stuff with the fingers. I can see similarity between that, the sitar, and what Richard Thompson does. I can like hear something, even though he got it from the Scottish tradition. But it's just something about it that resonates with me, like a spiritual thing.
That's funny, because this is something that I've noticed too, that something that is universal across music, because it's like this, this really occurred to me in college, because I knew a lot of people, what in the States they call world music, which I think a lot of people think is a stupid term, because it just lumps literally everything else that's not English language music in. But and that was the first place that I heard, like, Tuvan throat music, for example, and it occurred to me that there were parallels between throat music and bagpipe music. Like there's something about the drone that's kind of universal throughout all these different cultures.
Yeah. And I mean, in the Indian, on the sitar, you have the drone. You have, like, the strings that you're hitting, and it's just, so it's very, and actually also in the fiddle music, you can, like, drone on one string and then do melody on the other. So now it's all there. And then the other thing I had from that is kind of weird, that people might not know in the States, but I mentioned rockabilly, but, like, 50s rock and roll and like greaser culture, basically.
Yeah, of course.
And big American cars was also very big in my area where I grew up. It was like
muscle cars.
Yeah, and just listening to Chuck Berry, Elvis, and Buddy Holly, and all that. So I always loved that.
Did you say people in the States might not know that?
No, I don't know. I don't know if they do. That is the big thing in the countryside.
Those are all very American things that you're talking about.
Yeah. No, but I mean that it was big in rural Sweden.
Oh, that it was big over there. Yeah, got it.
In like the 70s and 80s. It was like it was. I saw Chuck Berry in on a field in a village in 89 or so.
Was it Happy Days? Was it American Graffiti? Did those things come over and influence that? Do you know?
I think it kind of started then because we had a band in the late 70s called the Boppers, which was sort of like doo-wop, and
there was a big US one.
Sha-na-na-na? No.
Sha-na-na.
Yeah. And I guess this was a bit later, but they were huge for a while there in Sweden, and they only did covers. But I mean, obviously, I heard their records. My mother was actually, this is a sideline, but
this is fascinating.
they went to, as everyone did in the 70s in Sweden, at least, it was very popular to go to like Spain for holidays. And my parents met a couple on a holiday in Spain in the 70s, and she was from Poland, and but they lived in Sweden. And her cousin was one of the singers in this band that became huge a couple of years later. So actually, at one point, they split up, and then they got together again in 1990 and had some new big hits. And they were playing like the local hotel venue, whatever, in my small town. And I was sort of, what's the word? I did it like a school assignment that I was gonna,
did a report.
Yeah, the report, but also like work, like when you do like try to work for a couple of days or something in I can't remember the word in English, but no, but I mean, I know I did 1 week in a factory. I did 1 week in like a camera shop. And then I had this I'm gonna try out with them. I was 14 or something.
You were like temping, yeah.
And then I wrote about it, and it was really weird because obviously I'd never been backstage with a rock band before, and I was just 14, and it was like they felt so old, but I mean they were probably 30, or I don't know. I just felt they felt super old, and the keyboard player said he had the flu or something. I think it was, now with some hindsight, I think it was hungover, but he had to go puke, and the tour manager was like, "This is your big chance. Can you play organ?" I was like, "Not really," but and he like pushed me out on stage. It's just 3 chords, and I played like Hammond organ for one of their hits, and then he came back from the toilet, and I.
That was your first taste of stardom.
Yeah. The Boppers. Yeah,
that's a great story.
Yeah, they're still around. They still do like shows here. Yeah, like Christmas shows, and like
they haven't ever opened for Peter, Bjorn and John.
I met one of them in recent years, so yeah, they know about us.
Yeah. It's interesting. So getting back to that conversation about the Richard Thompson book, something occurred to me as you were talking about that, and I think it gets to something. It gets to why I really love reading biographies and memoirs, especially for artists, and I think probably a big piece of why I like interviewing artists is I really love it when they talk about the pragmatic reasons why they do things. Like I'm sure that Richard Thompson loves folk music, I'm sure he loves Celtic music, I'm sure that's in his blood and soul and everything else, but he had a very practical reason for doing it too. And I love hearing that part of the story.
Yeah. No, it's wonderful. Yeah. for sure.
Sounds like something that's like very relatable to you, especially going through that experience of having this all of a sudden unexpected and huge hit.
Yeah. No, it was definitely unexpected, and it took us by surprise. And it was also, we were all grown-ups. We were pushing 30 at that point.
Old men, yeah.
Old men. Yeah.
Old 30-year-olds, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Catching the flu. And
exactly. Yeah, I don't know. It's but it's interesting, circling back to sort of the pandemic, that it was kind of it was good for me in a way, partly just being, I have a 12-year-old kid, and just being home a lot during that period was good because he was smaller. And now we went out on like a nostalgia tour here in May with the band, and he didn't.
That important 19th anniversary tour.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's crazy. I don't know what happened there. It was just a festival that wanted us to do the classic album, and then we did a tour around it. But we're probably going to do more next year when it's the actual 20th. But during that was like the first longer tour I have done in a long time. I've done a couple of weeks with James Yorkston in the UK, but apart from that, I only play like couple of shows in Sweden now and then, small shows. And it was so different because he probably missed me, but I rarely see him these days because he's always out with friends, and he has football, and he's becoming a teenager. So it was in a way easier to go away. So I think it was, the pandemic came at the right time, but also just this thing of reaching into yourself and remembering. I think it's also a midlife thing, because you can see the end in sight. You can sort of see around you.
You can't see the end. I mean, you're being a little dramatic, but yes. No, but I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like. I'm not talking about myself, even though obviously there are people around me in my age getting cancer.
Of course.
Stuff happens.
Yeah.
But just, I mean, seeing your parents getting older, like,
yeah, of course.
And also having a kid growing up and all that you go through as a parent. And in a way, it's to circling back with hanging out with older people. It's a good thing too, because it makes you realize that it's important to relax, and it's important to sort of have a good gut feeling about what you're doing, and because there's not endless time. So if I really want to do the music I want to do, I probably should get started. but before I didn't think about that. I just did stuff. I just next thing. But a bit of reflection and a bit of like, yeah. It's not bad.
It occurs to me that even without the pandemic, there are three things. Let me see if I can remember them off the top of my head. There are three things here. There's, there's entering that age. There's that point in your life. That the 20th anniversary. I guess the sort of the 20th anniversary kind of coinciding with the this solo record, and saying that I can't remember who it was with. You did a great interview with somebody where you essentially said that the music you're doing now is probably the music that you would be doing if that song and that album hadn't exploded, which is fascinating to me. And I'm just wondering, obviously there's always going to be a little bit of nostalgia. Regret's not the right word, because clearly you've made good decisions and your life seems to be good and going the right way. But it's human nature to sort of think about how things would be different if things happened differently. And obviously a great song, but luck is always a part of all of these things. And I'm just wondering how much of all of these things kind of happening at once have made you think about that, about how things would be different
if that wouldn't have happened. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I would always have done music because I've done music all my life, and I probably do it until I die. I know I will, and that's another thing about reflection, that realizing that it was for me it was never about, and going back maybe to folk music and like the small scale, that it is a spiritual thing. It is sort of like if you're gonna go down to the nuts and bolts of it, it's not about like records even. It's not about writing songs. It's about weddings and funerals and meeting your love, and crying and laughing. It's not about artists. It's not about fame or social media or anything or doing podcasts. No. I mean, it's about
no. I know.
Yeah,
I know.
No. And just remembering that's kind of why I do this, and that I'm gonna do it even if it's 5 people looking. It's not really. I'm not doing it for money, really. But then on the other hand, you have money. I got money. I got money from it,
and you have people depending on you.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Of course. It's like a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, there's so many people that never get past that song, and they don't even talking about the Peter Bjorn and John catalog. They maybe know 1 or 2 songs, and they never reach further.
And that's not a reflection of you. That's just like the way a lot of people engage with music. That's just You know what I mean. I mean,
yeah.
And that there's nothing wrong with it. That's just kind of how they go through the world.
Yeah. Of course. So you can't really complain about it. But then me doing something outside of the band, it'll be even harder for anyone to find.
That's another step removed.
Yeah. So exactly. So it is basically, on a bad day, you sort of think like, what am I doing? Like, I should just keep the songs that would fit Peter Morén and John and wait maybe we'll do another record or whatever.
How can we whistle in this one?
Exactly. Yeah. But doing the first record I did in 23, and then I continued straight into this next one. I didn't even think about it, because even before the first one was out, I just had, I got some sort of flow and vibe, and I just want to continue. So I started the second one straight ahead. So that's been finished for quite a while too. And that was a good thing that the first one wasn't out, because it's just like part 1 and part 2, and I just continued and didn't overthink. So it's kind of a mixture of, like, circling back to what I think you talked about, this idea of if this hadn't happened with the band. And, I would always have done music, and I probably would have written, and I probably would have played like parties and covers,
I guess it's maybe harder to gauge on this album, because you also made the point that there are more songs on this album that could be songs with the band, but and this idea again of like finding your identity as a musician, like how would your music be different?
Well, I guess the point is, it's hard to it's just like that idea that you talked about, that I said that this music would sound like this if young folks never would have happened. It's just that idea of that the first 2 records, however, maybe they were immature and young or whatever, but it was more like my music, and that's why I think like a mature version of that, and a version of that where I had all this experience. You can't. That's the thing. That's why that discussion doesn't really work. I mean, it's just like a mind game, because it doesn't really work.
It's hypothetical.
Because I could never have done these records that I really like if I wouldn't have done like 20 years with the band and all this other stuff. Because I'm better at playing, I'm better at singing, I'm better at writing, I'm better at producing, and I'm better at putting it together. But on the other hand, it's kind of it's going back to some sort of roots. I don't know. soulful roots or whatever. It sounds really, really pompous, but
getting back to some of the things that I've seen you say around this record. Let me actually find the quote, because I thought it was really interesting. It was this idea of essentially, I can't find the exact quote, but it was the idea of like essentially prioritizing this project now even above this band that has been so central to who you are for so long. I mean, what does that mean? And does that mean that the bands, although obviously, you've got this tour and to a certain extent a nostalgia tour, it's the 19th anniversary, it's the 20th anniversary, it is on the back burner for a little while you focus on this stuff?
It's more a mental thing for me. It's kind of, again, I'm going back to the pandemic, but something shifted in my head, and because I've done solo records before, primarily in Swedish, and that felt like a proper side project because it was in Swedish. It was like I was experimenting with different genres and working like with different producers and stuff and writing in Swedish.
And there's a certain audience, a certain like English audience that's just not going to listen to something not in English.
No, exactly. And in a way similar to the Peter, Bjorn and John stuff we've done, it was kind of deliberately experimental as well, trying stuff out. But with this thing, I feel like I'm not really, to my mind, I'm not deliberately experimenting at all. I'm just doing, I feel I have a handle on songwriting that is better than it used to be, and also playing and performing. But it's still like it's just what comes natural. And if it sounds experimental, it's because I'm an eclectic person and I like all kinds of music. But it's kind of, I'm not overthinking it, and also I'm trying to get like the songs as good as possible on just the guitar by myself, and then I present it to the musicians I'm playing with, and it's all recorded live, apart from maybe one or two songs. Of course, there's overdubs and stuff, but it is like a band feeling. So that's why it's different than the Peter Morén records as well, because it is a proper like band vibe when we're recording. And there's also a couple of other themes, like I have all these duets bringing in other voices, and there's some guitar instrumentals on both records. So I guess there's a couple of themes that like makes it SunYears and kind of frames it.
There's two distinct things happening here. There's the part of you that, grew up in this small rural town and really thrives being isolated, and that's where the creativity comes from. But it's clear to me that there's a big part of you that thrives through collaboration, because this is a solo project that's also a band.
Yeah. No, I love collaborating, and that's the thing. I'm not like a cut and paste like computer guy. I can't record by myself. I never learned. I tried for a while. Like I did demos on GarageBand and stuff, and I tried to learn Pro Tools, but it's like math. I was really bad at maths in school, and computers are the same for me. Like my son is better on computers than I am. It's just like a turn off. So I'm very like old school like that, versus like amps and old guitars and an actual desk where you can move
analog.
Yeah, I like that. That's a turn on for me, and it's the same with playing with people. Even though I've written the songs, most of them at least, solitary by myself, playing them with people, again, it's very spiritual and it's like a communal thing. And also then bringing in people and singing, that's like even another step, because then you can hear someone else singing back what you've written, and you can kind of enjoy it more because you don't have to listen to yourself, and it's more like, okay, what is that? Is it such a good song? I didn't realize it was that good, because someone else is, and it's kind of, I don't know. And also having the ability of since it's not like a proper band like that, so I can pick and choose. I have this song, I bring in a voice that will lift it, rather than just looking at, okay, who's in the room? You can sing it maybe because you sit here, So it's kind of curated like that. So in that way, it's definitely thought out, but it's just feel like an organic, stream of consciousness flow of writing and not thinking about scenes and band members and success, whatever that is, has made me written more naturally again, as I did it at 25. It's like even though I think I'm doing better stuff, it's in that way it's similar to how it was back then. Yeah.
Are there parts of that? Are there lessons, or at least is there kind of an energy that you can take and apply that to Peter, Bjorn, and John?
I mean, we'll see, because that was the other question you asked that I maybe didn't answer. Like mentally, I'm here now. I'm in this project, and I kind of want to do another one, I guess. We'll see what happens. But obviously, in the eyes of the world and in the eyes of the bank, it is a side project, but not in my head, and that's what shifted during the pandemic, because the solo records before, they were side projects, but now it's kind of, I don't know, sort of realization and also that I have to present it like that because I want people to take it seriously, and sometimes you have to be like overstating things for people to take notice. I feel sometimes, because otherwise it's just that guy. He's just doing another of his side projects.
What do you mean? What do you mean by What do you mean by you have to overstate things?
No. I mean, like, because you can always make like one record with something where you just I met someone I've done a couple of those records where you just meet someone and like, let's do a band, let's do a record, and then you do a record and then you do nothing more. I've even done like one song with a guy, and we put out a single, stuff like that, and that's fun. I love doing stuff like that. But like being a bit more persistent and making 2 records in a row pretty quick, I kind of feel. I feel that at least people around me. We had a release show last week when we put out the record, and I just feel that people kind of starting to get it now. That you're gonna do this. I guess, which I think takes a while for people to kind of,
well, let me reframe the question. Actually, I think because this is sort of what I was getting at, because it's not a Peter, Bjorn, and John question specifically. Do you think, because it strikes me, and maybe I'm off on this, but it strikes me that this experience of the past 5 years may have fundamentally changed the way that you approach songs and work as a writer. And do you think that there are certain things that you will just take with you across to other projects?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the question is that you have to sort of then again have a meeting with yourself, and you have to put songs in boxes, which I've done before. So in a sense, yes and no, because I still have to curate. I still have to like think about, okay, what should I bring to the band? If we're doing,
what would fit with this specific.
And I would probably have we would probably have a meeting like, what sort of record are we gonna do if we're gonna do a record, and we recorded 2.5 songs. We've done a couple of songs, and they were like proper co-writes because they were done with Victoria, actually, who sings on Young Folks. We've done like it's a scoop you're getting here. We've done like a couple of songs with her, and it kind of was initiated from her. But I hope we can get it out next year. Maybe just like a single or an EP or something. Just again to celebrate the 20th that we're doing something again with her, So those are clear co-writes. But apart from that, we haven't done anything in a long time. And at the moment, I'm quite comfortable going out, and I really enjoyed the tour we did in May. I still think those songs are really good. It was good shows. I didn't feel ashamed about any of the songs. There are songs that I don't like, but on that record I like them. Good, which is good. But there's definitely songs I don't want to sing. But in some ways I think we're better live now than we used to be, because that's another thing that rarely gets talked about when people get older, but usually they get better to a certain point until when they start losing their voice.
The voice is the one thing, yeah.
Yeah, but before that, like, and I've heard that the male voice, if treated right, it's the best between 50 and 60.
So as long as you can drop the music down an octave, you're fine.
Yeah. So it was a long-winded answer to say that at the moment I'm quite, comfortable just doing the nostalgia thing, and I'm not even sure, and if I want to do another record.
I think the answer is like, that you can't answer because you're just not even focused on it yet.
No,
is that fair?
And we have a handshake deal within the band that we were gonna do 10 records, so we have one left, but that's another thing. If you have talking about dogmas and rules and stuff like that, like if you have that, it's probably a stupid idea, because if we know that the next one's going to be the last one, that's another expectation. How are we going to finish? Like,
it's got this one has to count, right? That's that's a Quentin Tarantino did that, right? Quentin Tarantino did the 10 film thing. So the last one's got to be good. Yeah,
exactly. So I don't know if that's a good idea. We probably should say that we're going to make 11 and then we make to 10 just to relax again. I think relaxing is important.
This is do Spinal Tap.
Yeah, exactly. But so it's all a bit open, and I also have more tours with Robert coming up, and I don't really know. But the good thing is, what's basically, even though we can feel this love-hate relationship with the hit song and all that, I mean, that's what makes me. That's why I'm able to do these records the way I want to do them. Go into a studio with an engineer, with musicians, and make them old school like I want. Do like a nice cover on the LP and whatever. That's because of Young Folks, and so yeah, I don't know. It's kind of. But you also have to question, like, I think it's important to question, do you have to do do you have to play the old songs? Like, is it worthwhile? Or are you treading water? And in some way you do tread water if you just because I'm not a nostalgic person. I just want to be on to the next thing. But I guess if you have a balance and do both, then, it's, yeah.
I think that's why because these sorts of the anniversary album tours really started 10, 15 years ago with the Pixies and everything. And I think that's why these are great, because they kind of let you get that out of your system, let the fans get it out of your system, so you don't have to just be touring on that album for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Or we'll do that. We'll tour that.
Or you do that, or everything goes great, and you're like, oh, well, it's the 23rd anniversary. We have to tour on this.
Yeah, I mean, like television. I've seen them play Marky Moon 3 times.
Yeah,
and they don't fair. They never did anything else. I mean, they did a couple of.
Well, their next album. But to be fair, all 3 of their albums are great.
They're all good. They're all good.
But and I'm not that I need to defend television, but seeing television was like going to see the Grateful Dead. You know what I mean? Like the things that Verlaine and Lloyd are doing on the guitar, they're going to jam out, right?
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Yeah. But,
I don't know. I feel like I need to defend television. I
love television. I love television. I'm just meaning that
I know what you mean.
They did 3 records, and they did probably those tours to play for the fans and to get some cash, and then they did other stuff. And I mean, that's fine. I mean, we've done 9 albums. So,
and Verlaine had a ton of solo records.
Yeah, and they're pretty good as well. So I mean that's the other. As long as you accept that you're not gonna get the same audience, and I mean, on a bad day you can get a little irritated because you think there are songs that if you only heard them you would like them. Like we think about the audience, if you will find this, you would probably like it. But I mean, yeah, then it's up to me. Why did I put it out on this brand? Yeah, I guess it works.
Had a ship on my shoulder and a mouthful to eat. While I came out on top, I was claiming defeat. I never strayed too far from the